2001 was home to one of the biggest and best shows WWE have ever put on, WrestleMania X7. TLC 2, the hardcore triple threat, the gimmick battle royal, Zombie Linda! And then there is the main event, which ended with Stone Cold Steve Austin shaking hands with Satan himself as he recaptured the WWE title. It was a beautiful night, one that will live on in the hearts and minds of wrestling fans until the end of time. That being said, 2001 was also the year of the Invasion storyline. So let's focus on that instead and dump all over this beloved historic year in wrestling history. I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 worst WWE matches of 2001. Sorry, join us. Number 10, Big Show vs. Diamond Dallas Page at Rebellion. 2 weeks out from the dramatic end of the Invasion storyline at Survivor Series, WWE ran Rebellion, one of their UK-exclusive pay-per-views. The show was rather strange, as many of the top stars appeared to be totally out of it, cutting bizarre backstage promos that were very clearly influenced by jet lag. Perhaps this explains why the Big Show vs. Diamond Dallas Page match, which went on midway through the show, was such a stinker. To give the former WCW men their credit, the match was only allotted 3¼ minutes, which is hardly enough to put on a 5-star classic. Still, surely they could have done better than this. A match that mostly involved DDP bouncing around for show, then hitting the Diamond Cutter, only to be too beaten up to capitalize. One chokeslam from the ex-giant LITA, and the founder of DDP Yoga was out for the count. He then tried to cut a promo about how bad the UK was, but show's music started playing over the top of him speaking to hilariously cut him off. He couldn't even beat the man's theme song. 2001 really wasn't DDP's year. Number 9, Steven Richards vs. Jerry Lawler at No Way Out. Stacey Carter, aka Miss Kitty, aka The Cat, had a very unique wrestling career. With the in-ring skills of a cauliflower, the Cat was mainly used to titillate the audience with her exhibitionist character. Basically any chance to get her kit off on TV she would take. This predictably drew the ire of Right to Censor, a moralistic group on a crusade to keep WWE programming clean. Good luck with that one. Cat's feud with RTC led to a match between the White Sox-wearing group's leader, Steven Richards, and Cat's real-life husband, Jerry Lawler, at No Way Out. Despite the dated story, the match went alright for the most part. Lawler could still go, and an irate Richards was an entertaining foil. Unfortunately, as the bout reached its conclusion, several things went wrong. First, Lawler missed his cue to stop Richards using a chair, leading to several awkward moments of just standing around. Then, Cat also jumped her spot when trying to attack Richards with Ivory's women's title belt, leaving the match mired in a very sloppy finish. Hey, at least this led to that intriguing storyline where Cat had to join the group. Oh wait, no, scrap that, she was fired 2 days later. Number 8, IVORY vs. CHYNA at Royal Rumble. A huge part of why CHYNA was so successful during her WWE career was that for a period she would almost exclusively wrestle men. So what did WWE decide to do with the 9th wonder of the world in 2001? Put her in the women's division, of course. This led to CHYNA facing women's champion IVORY at the Royal Rumble in January, and by facing we actually mean beating the living hell out of. IVORY got decimated here, completely upstaged by the much more dominant woman. It looked as if CHYNA was easily going to capture the gold when she re-aggravated a kayfabe neck injury while attempting a handspring elbow. This allowed the Right to Censor member to pin and retain. What was essentially an extended squash match turned into a confusing mess, all because the company had no idea how to keep CHYNA looking strong without putting the belt on her. Number 7, Earl Hebner vs. Nick Patrick at Invasion. The Invasion pay-per-view from July 2001 is one of the most interesting wrestling shows of all time with the power of hindsight. The first major step in the arc of the same name, Invasion offered up the opportunity to pit some of the biggest names from WWE up against icons from ECW and WCW. So naturally, we got a 6-man tag with Shawn Stasiak, Kanyon, and Hugh Morris against Albert, Big Show, and Billy Gunn. And we also got another match nobody expected, a referee fight between between WWE's Earl Hebner and WCW's Nick Patrick. This came about as a result of tensions between the two groups of officials backstage. Yeah, the referees, the part of this storyline everybody was interested in. As you can imagine, a match between two middle-aged non-wrestlers went thusly. Lots of punches, lots of kicks, lots of shenanigans with the other refs on the outside, before Earl hit the worst spear of all time for the win. In an ironic sense, this is great fun actually, but unfortunately we here at Cultaholic are very serious people and have no time for irony, and so that is why you are at number 7, Zebra Men. Number 6, Torrie Wilson versus STACY KEIBLER at No Mercy. Sticking with the invasion now as we head to October's No Mercy pay-per-view. On a show where Edge faced Christian for the Intercontinental Championship and Steve Austin defended his world title in a triple threat main event, STACY KEIBLER and Torrie Wilson went to war in a lingerie match. Truly, the stakes had never been higher. But hang on a second, Adam, weren't KEIBLER and Wilson both on the Alliance team? They both came over from WCW in the buyout. How come they were fighting? Well, Torrie had recently begun an on-screen relationship with Tajiri, who was a member of Team WWF. Then, to get back at her, STACY teamed up with the Dudley Boys to... Wait, why am I getting into this much detail of a goddamn lingerie match? Basically, it was two attractive women rolling about in their underwear for the entertainment of the despicably horny, like myself. If you want me to get any more technical than that with my description, then prepare to be sorely disappointed. Oh, and Torrie won, by the way, in a match that only just breached 3 minutes. To be fair to both ladies, they obviously looked lovely, respectfully. Number 5, the Brothers of Destruction versus Diamond Dallas Page and KANYON at SummerSlam. Remember how we said that 2001 wasn't Diamond Dallas Page's year? This match would be key evidence in the murder of DDP's WWE career trial. Page first debuted for the company as the mystery stalker of The Undertaker's wife Sarah, revealing himself to a huge pop on an episode of Raw. After that, though, it was all downhill. After getting beaten to a bloody pulp by Taker at King of the Ring, Page would continue to feud with the dead man up until SummerSlam. By this point, DDP and former protege KANYON had won the WWE Tag Team Championships, whilst Taker was the WCW Tag Champ along with his demonic brother. A steel cage match was made for all the marbles, and my god was it one-sided. Like an adult man taking on a toddler in a running race one-sided. KANYON and DDP got their World Championship backsides whooped as the brothers easily dispatched of them to win both sets of gold. Page was already a joke by this point, but the utter humiliation he suffered inside that cage proved that one of the most popular homegrown stars in the history of WCW was nothing more than a jobber in his new surroundings. Number 4, TRISH Stratus and LITA versus Torrie Wilson and STACY KEIBLER at Invasion. Back to the Invasion show now, and yet another match aimed solely at that lucrative, horny, testosterone-fueled male demographic. It was WWE in 2001, so that was like 97% of their audience, myself included. The Invasion pay-per-view was supposed to be a showcase of everything the two warring sides had to offer. You had the star-studded main event featuring some of the top talent from across all 3 brands, a mid-card showdown between Jeff Hardy and Rob Van Dam, and the all-time classic that was that referee fight. It stands to reason that a women's match was needed on the card, so the company defaulted to their old habit of booking several ladies in skimpy outfits to rip each other's clothes off. WWE's Trish and Lita teamed up to take on Torrie Wilson and STACY KEIBLER in happier pre-Tajiri times. The action was sloppy, which isn't a shock when you consider that the WCW gals weren't trained wrestlers. The whole thing wrapped up in about 5 minutes after the Alliance women were stripped down to their undies. Oh, and Mick Foley was there too as the special guest referee. I'm sure he had a nice day. Number 3, Buff Bagwell versus Booker T on Raw. Prior to the invasion, WWE had considered relaunching WCW as its own standalone brand, with the idea that Raw would become the WCW show. To trial that concept, they presented a WCW title match in the main event of the July 2nd, 2001 episode of Raw. And if WWE were on the fence about having WCW be a standalone brand beforehand, well, this match not only kicked them off the fence, but it set it on fire and then steamrolled the burning embers into to the ground. Failing to even approach the standards expected of a headline bout, let alone a world title one, the match fell apart as fans duly turned on it. The chemistry was non-existent, the timing was off, and crucially, the audience just didn't want to see them square off since, you know, they'd bought tickets to see the Steve Austins and Kurt Angles of the world. Bagwell has tried to blame the reception it received on the show's Tacoma, Washington location, claiming it would have went down a storm in former WCW home base Atlanta. Cry sabotage all you want, Buff, but watching the footage back, it's readily apparent that you just didn't have the stuff. Sucker! Number 2, Trish Stratus versus STACY KEIBLER on SmackDown. At Survivor Series 2001, Trish Stratus won her first of 7 women's championships by overcoming 5 other women in a 6-pack challenge. This was the culmination of a long, hard journey for the Canadian former fitness model. She had worked her way up from humble manager to Vince McMahon's on-air plaything to bona fide female superstar in just a couple of short years. This title win was vindication of all her hard work, and now the time had come for her to show what she was made of as champion. So, 2 days later, she fought STACY KEIBLER in a match where you had to throw your opponent into a swimming pool full of gravy. Because Thanksgiving was just around the corner, WWE decided that the best medium for Trish to have her second ever title defense was a gravy bowl match. Trish and STACY sat down at a dinner table, threw some mashed potato at each other, and then fell into the murky-looking liquid before Stratus forced KEIBLER to tap out. This was gross in every conceivable fashion. I just feel sorry for the 2 women involved and anyone who had to smell them afterwards, which I assume would be Jerry Lawler. Number 1, the Brothers of Destruction versus KRONIK at Unforgiven. Brian Clark and Brian Adams, no, not that one, were really starting to hit their stride when WCW went under. As KRONIK, the pair reigned twice as WCW Tag Team Champions and were part of some prominent storylines in the company's dying days. Vince McMahon was keen to find a place for these 2 jacked dudes, wonder why, and so he put them in a program with the Brothers of Destruction in the build-up to Unforgiven 2001. Big mistake. Murphy's Law is the belief that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Well, you might as well rename it KRONIK's Law, because that is exactly what happened here. All the moves looked like complete arse, with Taker getting so frustrated at the WCW boys that he ended up loudly calling spots for all to hear. Oh, and then screaming when they went tits up. For 10 god-awful minutes, this charade dragged on until the demonic half-brothers finally won. As for Clark and Adams, this performance was so bad that it finished them as a team in WWE. You've probably heard people talk about just how bad this match is, but you owe it to yourself to check it out and witness firsthand just how chronically terrible it actually is.